Hello, and welcome. Solo leveling. Face it, everyone, we're now living in a post-Season 2 world. The stock market really hasn't recovered. Weebs far and wide are trying to come up with new ways to eat their Saturday morning breakfast cereals. And after 13 weeks of constant hype and aura farming, the most obvious question now is, what's next? Season 2 of Solo Leveling was confirmed right after Season 1 finished, so isn't it surprising how a third season hasn't automatically been greenlit too? And make no mistake, out of all the anime from this year, none have reached the levels of cross appeal quite like Solo Leveling has, as it's become the most popular anime of the year by far up to this point. Which is why I think it's important to go over what Solo Leveling Season 2 accomplished and how we move forward, because I think it'd be fun, which is why you should join me as I continue my journey to discover the perfect anime. Before I go any further, I should probably define one word above all else: aura. No, this video is not sponsored. Aura is more of a concept than something you can strictly define. In a way, what aura is can't be expressed with words, but instead action first. Oh hey, that could be the best way to demonstrate aura, but some people just have aura baked into their very presence. The moment you see them, you know that they mean business, and messing with them will require you to change your pronouns to past tense. The reason I bring this all up is because Solo Leveling excels at aura, especially Season 2. Keep in mind, Sung Jin-Woo started the series with negative aura. He was, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, a colossal liability. If Sung Jin-Woo was on your team, you were going to lose. Hey, I was always picked last for dodgeball, I understand. But get this, the anime is titled Solo Leveling. After this asshole willingly endangers the lives of multiple people because he thought that entering the ominous Uncharted Death Dungeon should be put up to popular vote, Sung Jin-Woo awakens his ability to level. Just had to go through a little bit of this, that, this, and a little bit of this. But hey, it builds character. Season 1's job was to showcase Jin-Woo's climb from level 1 all the way to level die, and it's also the season where I felt that his life was most in danger. Well, he is the main character, he's got plot armor, I know I wasn't watching Orb and the Movements of the Earth here, and since he survived Season 1, he's got an entire season's worth of farming aura, all the way to the finale of unlocking his ability to summon undead. But seeing how Season 2 went, it does bring to mind, was Season 1 truly necessary in order to generate all of this aura? Anyone could have said at any time, you see that guy over there? Not him. He's the strongest Munchkin in all of Oz. And then we could have just rolled with it. Said Munchkin demonstrates her full capabilities and our collective panties drop. But therein lies the trick. Someone had to tell you. I don't see this as an issue. There are plenty of powerful and imposing anime characters who are made clear from the get-go that they're the strongest and provide a benchmark for what the upper limit of strength is in a series. I've made an entire video last year about this, what I think makes a great overpowered character. But in the case of Jin-Woo in Season 1, what I think is most effective is that we don't know the fullest extent of his abilities, and neither does he because he's still leveling up. Anytime a fight happens in this series, I'm sure many of us, myself included, say to ourselves, that was pretty good, I think I'll watch it a second time. And Crunchyroll knows this. They've uploaded several fights of the series in full to their YouTube channel. They're just right there for your enjoyment, the entire fight scene. No 60 FPS bullshit, no cutting every 3 seconds, no Linkin Park AMVs. The entire fight right there for you to goon to. Which makes me wonder further, is watching the show even necessary? After all, these fights get millions of views. However, it's successful. I can only imagine how many people have discovered Solo Leveling from seeing these fights on YouTube and decided to watch it. Sure, many of us have stuck through week by week and watched Jin-Woo accumulate all that aura for our viewing pleasure. But what I truly think is the greatest strength of Solo Leveling is not necessarily the fight scenes or the aura farming, but instead, anticipation. Now, you could just answer the question I asked at the beginning of the video of where do we go next by saying read the manhwa, and you're right. I could just stop what I'm doing and read the entire series. Many people have, and there's nothing wrong with that. The media exists for you to consume it in whichever way you want. Despite being a webtoon, it exists in printed format. We've got the anime. You can check out the webtoon itself. You can play the gacha game. You can have a solo leveling birthday party. I'm sure there are fresco paintings of solo leveling in the Vatican, but many of us choose not to, including me. I've managed to stay anime only for 25 episodes, and it's been extremely fun to do so I'm going to continue doing that. Most anime I watch, I stick to the anime itself since I get spoiled on all the flashy visuals and voice acting and music. I love manga, and I'm steadily getting more into manhwa too, but I read much less than you'd think I would. And I'll admit, I'm a slow reader too, I take my time. So week after week, having solo leveling end each episode with a devious cliffhanger is extremely effective. I swear, even Quentin Tarantino would get angry at seeing Jin-Woo's feet. The grippers of edging, they call them. Even grandparents aren't safe. This even goes back all the way to the first episode. Just because it's action focused doesn't just cut it, you've got to have that hook. The fights are excellent, but everything surrounding it's pure build-up. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but one of my favorite Harry Potter films is Deathly Hallows Part 1. And that film is mostly depressed teenagers going a nature hike. I love that film a lot because it sets up everything needed for the grand finale, and I even prefer Deathly Hallows Part 1 to Part 2. So in other words, we've had 25 episodes up to this point of an effective amount of build-up to satisfying payoff. Song Jin-Woo ends episode 25 with aura levels that shouldn't be possible by mere humans. However, the reason why I'm making this video in the first place is because I genuinely don't know how A1 Pictures is going to top this. Solo Leveling Season 2 is so good that they may have set the expectations too high. And this series isn't only fights and aura, I especially liked episode 21, since this was why Jin-Woo's been fighting the entire time. He wanted to cure his mother, and the scene where she awakens and sees him once again, it's beautiful. And believe it or not, there were a vocal minority of people who didn't like this episode. Now, I'm not going to try and start rage baiting or anything. Some people only watch certain shows in order to watch fight scenes. And if that's how you consume anime, fair enough. You're entirely entitled to your own opinion and viewpoint. After all, many of the fights are free to watch on YouTube for your enjoyment. But Solo Leveling Season 2 really is the biggest anime to have come out this year. According to metrics, it's actually surpassed Demon Slayer and One Piece to be the most popular anime overall on Crunchyroll. And that's with only 25 episodes. Maybe it's become too big. Back during Season 1, there was a production issue which caused a slight delay, and in place of a normal episode, A1 released a recap episode, which is pretty standard for them. I mean, 86 has 3 of them. If anything, it was only a matter of time before A1 had their inevitable delay of the series. Especially that same season, they're also coming out with Mashal Season 2. However, the recap episode became the most disliked episode in all of Crunchyroll. And really, that just tells me that a lot of people who are watching this series have never seen or heard of a recap episode before. I'm not a fan of them either, and at the very least, A1 announced that there would be a recap episode ahead of time, so it didn't come out of nowhere. At the very least, they didn't trick us into watching a recap episode like Shield Hero did. But with everyone tuned into this series and wanting to see the aura keep building, the incredible fight scenes, and the hype moments, is it sustainable? I mean, of course, this series is extremely successful. However, this leads into my next point, which is something that I have dubbed the Rick and Morty paradox. Okay, I'm likely not coming up with anything new here, but I don't know what else this could be called, so Rick and Morty paradox it is. So, I remember when Rick and Morty was brand new. I first got into this series when only 3 episodes were out in 2013, and I watched and loved each of them. I had 2 friends in real life who knew that the series existed because they watch everything Adult Swim puts out. It was the early days until slowly but surely Season 1 progressed and became a critical success. Season 2 came 2 years later, and in that time, the hype and expectations only rose. And I still stand by that Season 2 of Rick and Morty is some of the best TV that I've ever watched. Episode after episode, they knocked it out of the park, and by the time the second season ended, it was on top of the world. 2 years later, Season 3 comes out, and It's Rick and Morty. I personally found this season very disappointing. Sure, some episodes are great, but the backlash to Rick and Morty was setting in hard. This was around the time that McDonald's brought back the Szechuan sauce and didn't account for the popularity of the series, leading to massive lines at your local Mickey D's. All of a sudden, fast food chains across the country were having bank runs like during the Great Depression, all because people wanted a special sauce that was used as one joke in the series. So many people were starting to realize that Rick and Morty, while well-written and funny, was getting a bit predictable. Rick is an asshole, Morty is taken advantage of, and you've got 20 minutes of fart jokes and sci-fi technobabble in there. That's dramatically oversimplifying it, but this is how many people were seeing the series. And then when, outside of the show, all they saw were long lines at McDonald's and Pickle Rick, it was becoming increasingly harder to find being a Rick and Morty fan socially acceptable. Now, I personally stopped watching the show after season 3. I thought that the jokes were getting stale, and I was finding Rick extremely grating to watch. I just didn't enjoy season 3 as a whole. It was starting to feel like that if you've seen one episode, then you've seen them all. But regardless of all that, Rick and Morty is still around with an 8th season coming soon, so it's clearly still successful. People who love Rick and Morty, they haven't gone anywhere. They're still supporting the show, and now the backlash is long since passed. If anything, it's now hip to actually come around and say that Rick and Morty has always been a good show, and you'd probably get a bunch of upvotes on Reddit for saying such bravery. I think a comparison could be made towards various anime where at one moment they're all everyone cares about, and then the next, the backlash to them becomes too loud to ignore. I think in a way, My Hero Academia is a perfect example of this. Don't lie, if you were watching anime in 2017, you watched season 2 and thought it was beyond hype. I did too. Then the 3rd season just wasn't on the same level as the 2nd. And a lot of viewers were starting to get tuned out. I've seen various reasons why. Maybe they didn't like Deku, or the length of the series was too imposing. Or the most common reason is the fandom. Which, really, not watching something because of how other people are into it can be its own video entirely. And that's not a sentiment I agree with. I've been to dozens of anime conventions and I've never had any issues with My Hero fans, especially that I've gone with people who cosplayed from this series. A few bad eggs shouldn't spoil the overall whole of something that the anime has no control over. When certain series become popular enough, they're going to attract a wide variety of people interested, and these may be people who you may not want to associate with for whichever reason that might be. And on the flip side, I'd say point me to a fanbase that isn't known for being annoying. The only fanbase I know of where everyone seems pretty chill is wood carving. Yeah, shoutouts to all my wood carvers out there. You're all cool people. Because it's niche. My Hero doesn't control how popular it is, and neither does Solo Leveling. A1, the moment that they took on the series, somewhat put themselves in a corner. You're going to want to make the best adaptation that the source material deserves and satisfy everyone's desires, but the moment that it deviates the slightest from it, or doesn't deliver a mind-melting fight scene, then some people out there are going to be upset. Fine. Let them. Keep producing. Keep pushing. Popularity comes and goes in cycles. Nickelback was everywhere in the 2000s and became the most hated act around for reasons that still evade me. Nickelback forever, by the way. And now, I don't have an issue saying that because you never hear anyone complain about them, especially since they're not playing on the radio every 5 minutes. Liking Nickelback is now becoming hip. So is liking Rick and Morty or My Hero Academia. But I'm not entirely sure if Solo Leveling will enter that same cyclical realm of hype and discourse, mainly because people know what they're getting into. One of the most popular memes of Solo Leveling is name 3 characters. Sure, there's Song Jin-Woo, but if you don't count his summons, name 2 others. Now, I don't think this is Solo Leveling's fault, to be fair. It's based off of a Korean manhwa, and while the manhwa itself is extremely popular, manhwa are still fairly niche outside of Korea. They're getting there, there's some truly awesome ones, but looking at Korean culture in the past decade, it's become much more mainstream because of K-pop and K-dramas, namely Squid Game. Back in 2012, many people, myself included, hadn't heard any K-pop songs until Gangnam Style exploded out into the wild. And now it's pretty much mainstream. I've heard my blue-collar coworkers talking about BTS before, and they can't even point to South Korea on a map. And Squid Game is beyond popular, probably the most popular TV series from this decade worldwide. However, K-pop artists often use stage names, or just one name. name. And Squid Game does use Korean names, however many of the characters get killed off fairly early on, and so only a few are really able to stick with you. And if you're a weeb, you've been exposed to Japanese names your entire weeb experience. You should be used to it by now. Korean names, most likely not as much. And I found myself remembering a lot of characters in Solo Leveling not because I love them, but because I wanted to prove to people I could name them. Kinda like why I learned what Tony Hawk looks like. That being said, Lee Joo-hee, you're still the smartest character in this show. Unlike this guy. So, if Solo Leveling is going to coast off of almost entirely its hype and MC's aura, then what can we expect? My main issue with Solo Leveling Season 2 is that there's only one fight where Song Jin-Woo really struggles in, and that's the first major one. After that, he just wipes the floor with all of his enemies. I don't think every fight is a free win, but compared to how much danger he was back in Season 1, he's so much more capable now. And to my surprise, I actually checked the manhwa for the Beru fight, and the anime made it seem much more evenly matched, which I prefer since Beru was able to effortlessly kill the top-ranked Japan hunter and then steals all the stars from the Korean hunters in Mario Party.
There is a god.
He should prove to be a threat to even Jin-Woo. Just look at the shot of the two of them sizing each other up. There's so much aura here that free run's gonna show up. Still though, he makes it out of the fight with much less damage to him than the Egress fight or others from Season 1. Is Jin-Woo's durability directly proportional to his chin sharpness? At this point in the story, I think the power scaling has already gone a bit too high. If Beru was too much for the S ranks, but Jin-Woo was too much for Flick here, then in order to up the stakes, I'm pretty sure what comes next is world-ending threats. The story's been drip-feeding us with characters who are so powerful even for mere S-rank status, so due to the laws of Chekhov's aura, I have no doubt they'll come into play later. If anything, Season 2 seems to be a stepping stone of Jin-Woo going from being a relatable protagonist to a god. And of course, Season 3 hasn't been announced yet. And with all the hype generated from Season 2, I'm more than okay with A1 taking their time to work on it. They're gonna be more requested than their steak sauce at Texas Roadhouse to make every anime coming out just like MAPPA and Ufotable. Even though, you know, other anime studios exist too. I remember when it was first announced that A1 would be adapting Solo Leveling, there were plenty of concerns that they wouldn't be able to deliver. And yet, now, that seems hard to believe. Especially when we can see what a webtoon with a poor adaptation looks like with The Beginning After the End currently airing. On a quick side note, I do want to give a shout out to Kala, who's the artist behind the OP for The Beginning After the End. The anime might have its problems, but he responded to a comment that I asked him on Reddit, and the song is pretty awesome too. You're pretty cool. Personally, I have no doubt that whenever Solo Leveling comes back, which I believe is now a question of when, not if, then it'll be in good hands. Sure, there will be people going around saying that the series sucks or the adaptation ruins it, that it's too popular and has no substance, but sometimes anime get popular because they're really good, or really fun to watch. That's the case here. Solo Leveling proves that not everything needs to be deep or insightful. Sometimes you just want to watch a man with a level 100 aura crack a few skulls, kick some guys in the teeth, and become part of this well-balanced breakfast. I've mentioned this before, but if your anime is going to do one thing above all else, then it's best to just go all out. Some anime are able to balance incredible action amongst everything else they do, and that's great too. But for many people, Solo Leveling will be their first, or perhaps only anime, and that's fine. Everyone deserves to enjoy anime and Solo Leveling at their own pace, and whichever way the series continues, it's still going to have its fair share of critics, as is inevitable with anything reaching this level of popularity. But I trust in A1 Pictures, and we haven't been disappointed by their adaptation of Solo Leveling yet. Now, if we could get a second season of 86. And to finish off, I'd like to mention that if you really miss the week after week hypeness of Solo Leveling and want something new to fill that void, then there's definitely something this season to satiate your appetite as we have a new anime original. That being To Be Hero X. Okay, I know this is technically not an anime, it's a donghua, but it's incredible. Only a few episodes are out so far, but this is a real deal. There's like 6 animation styles per episode, the action is flawless, the music is done by Sawano too, and it sets up a pretty interesting world where trust in heroes gives them strength, but fear in villains will likewise give them strength as well. I'm all in on this new series, and it's nice to see our Saturdays are once again filled with an incredibly well animated action series, as it no doubt brings us one step closer to finding the perfect anime. Hey, I may have spent more time and effort talking about solo leveling than needed, when I could have just gushed over how cool everything is. But if anything, I think all the discourse surrounding solo leveling was interesting enough to warrant its own video. I'm not going to be doing a tier list for the winter season itself, by the way. Instead, I'll be doing a mid-year anime tier list for the winter and spring seasons later on. So be sure to sub solo for more levels, so you don't miss out on that and other anime content coming soon. Also, I'm woefully behind on new anime this season and still haven't picked out everything I'll watch, so I'm up for any suggestions. Just please, watch To Be Hero X. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.